The man I trusted like a brother left me bleeding in my own driveway while my wife of 19 years watched from the porch and never called for help. I disappeared that night with a shattered cheekbone and 3 broken ribs, stayed gone for 18 months. When I finally returned, I learned he'd stolen my company, forged my signature on 6-figure loans, and my wife had secrets going back years before he ever touched her. My youngest daughter's DNA results. Game changer. My name is Cole Brennan. I'm 57 years old. I built everything twice in my life, once before they destroyed it and once after. This is the story of how I came back for the truth, and how the truth nearly killed me. Before we go any further, tell me where in the world you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow's story is one you shouldn't miss. The old Ford truck rumbled as I turned onto Ridgewood Lane. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. The oak trees lining the street, the manicured lawns, the problems that once felt impossible to escape. 18 months away does that. Gives you perspective, or maybe just enough distance to see clearly. I parked 4 houses down from what used to be my home. The 2-story colonial looked tired now. Shutters needed painting, hedges overgrown. Sloan never touched yard work. That was always my department, along with fixing everything that broke, paying every bill that arrived, and apparently being too blind to see what was rotting right beneath my own roof. A pink bicycle lay sideways near the garage. Nora's. My youngest would be 4 now. I'd missed 18 months of her life. The thought pressed against my chest like a fist. Declan was 22, somewhere overseas with the army, probably still believing his old man snapped and abandoned the family. And Iris, 15 now, the age when daughters start figuring out who they really are. I'd been gone for the hardest part. Movement through the living room window caught my eye. Sloan walked past, phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something. She looked good, better than she deserved to look. New haircut, new clothes. I wondered who was funding that lifestyle, since I knew the joint account was nearly drained when I left. My phone buzzed. Text from my lawyer. Observe only, document everything, no confrontation yet. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one who'd spent 2 decades loving a woman who'd been playing him for a fool. Wade Garrett. We'd been roommates freshman year at State, best man at my wedding. He knew every weakness I had, every pressure point, and he'd used that knowledge like a scalpel, carving my wife away from me one whispered lie at a time. The front door swung open. Nora ran out in yellow rain boots, chasing after a garden hose she'd left running, blonde curls bouncing, laughing at nothing. She'd grown so much. Something cracked inside my chest, something that had nothing to do with the ribs Wade had fractured. Sloan appeared on the porch behind her, arms crossed. She looked tired despite the new hair and polished appearance. Good, she should be tired. Tired of lying, tired of pretending, tired of whatever twisted game she and Wade had been playing with my entire existence. I didn't get out of the truck, not yet. I just watched my youngest daughter play in the yard, memorizing every movement, every giggle. This was why I came back. Not for revenge, though that would taste sweet. Not even for Sloan, though 19 years of history hung between us like a millstone. I came back for my kids, for the truth, and maybe, just maybe, to prove to everyone in Cedar Falls that Cole Brennan wasn't the broken man who'd crawled away 18 months ago. The man who returned was someone else entirely. I waited until Sloan loaded Nora into the minivan and drove off before I started the engine. Today wasn't about confrontation. Today was about reconnaissance, figuring out who knew what, and reconnecting with the people who might still believe in me, starting with Boyd Callahan. Boyd Callahan owned half the commercial properties in Cedar Falls, strip malls, office buildings, a warehouse district near the river. Before everything collapsed, I'd handled all his heating and cooling contracts. 15 years of reliable work. Now I was about to find out if that relationship had survived the lies Wade spread in my absence. His office sat on the 3rd floor of the Callahan building downtown. Same leather furniture, same view of the river, same smell of expensive coffee and quiet power. Boyd stood when I walked in, 70 years old, with a handshake that could crush walnuts. His face cycled through surprise, confusion, and finally something that looked almost like relief. "Cole Brennan." He shook his head slowly. "Heard you were dead. Car accident somewhere down south." "Heard that rumor myself. Turned out to be wishful thinking on someone's part." He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Sit down. Tell me everything." I spent the next hour laying it out. The beating, Sloan watching, my disappearance, the months I'd spent in a small town 3 states away, healing bones and rebuilding myself from the inside out. Boyd listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. "Wade Garrett's been busy since you left." "How busy?" "Took over your client list within a month, told everyone you'd had a mental breakdown, said you attacked him in some jealous rage, that you'd been forced to defend himself." Boyd's jaw tightened. "Said Sloan was terrified of you, that you'd been abusive for years." The words hit like punches, methodical, precise. "And people believed him?" "Some did. The ones who didn't know you well, the ones who wanted drama more than truth." Boyd met my eyes. "I never bought it. Known you 15 years, Cole. You're not the type." "What else is he saying?" Boyd hesitated, picked up his coffee cup, set it back down. Bad sign. "Spit it out, Boyd." "He's saying things about Nora, about how the timing never added up, how she's got his eyes, not yours." He paused. "Saying maybe you ran because you finally did the math and couldn't handle what it meant." My stomach dropped through the floor. "He's claiming Nora is his?" "Not outright, just planting seeds, letting people draw their own conclusions." Boyd shook his head in disgust. "Man's a snake, always has been. I just didn't realize how venomous until now." "I'm getting a DNA test," I said quietly. "Already talked to my lawyer." "Good, you deserve to know." Boyd stood and walked to the window. "Look, I still need HVAC work done. Got 3 buildings with systems that need servicing before winter. That hack Wade's been sending over charges triple and does half the work." "You offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to rebuild. Use my maintenance garage on 5th Street. Tools, workspace, whatever you need. We'll work out the details once you're settled." I stood, extending my hand. "I appreciate it, Boyd, more than you know." He gripped my hand firmly. "Don't mention it. Just do me one favor." "What's that?" "Whatever you're planning for Wade Garrett, make sure I get a front row seat." I drove back toward the motel where I'd been staying, Boyd's words echoing in my skull. Wade was out there telling anyone who'd listen that Nora might be his daughter, using my child as a weapon, poisoning the well so that even if I came back, even if I told the truth, people would look at me sideways. Have you ever heard a rumor about yourself so ugly that it made you question your entire life? I had, and now I needed to find out who else knew the truth about Sloane's lies, starting with her mother. Pauline Vance lived in a brick ranch house on the east side of town. Same flower beds she'd been tending for 30 years, same wind chimes on the porch. I'd spent countless holidays in that house, eating her pot roast, listening to her stories about Sloane's childhood. She'd never been my biggest fan, polite but distant, like she was waiting for me to disappoint her. Now I needed to know what she'd been hiding all these years. I knocked 3 times. Through the curtains I saw movement. Pauline's face appeared, went pale, then disappeared. For a moment I thought she wouldn't answer. Then the door cracked open, chain still attached. "Cole." Her voice was ice. "What do you want?" The truth. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Sloan said you might come, said I shouldn't talk to you. I don't care what Sloan said. I care about what really happened, and I think you know more than you've been letting on. We stared at each other through the gap. Finally, she sighed, closed the door, and I heard the chain slide free. 5 minutes, and if you raise your voice, you leave. The living room looked the same. Floral couch, family photos on every surface. I noticed something different, though. Every picture that used to include me had been replaced or removed. 18 months, and I'd been erased from the family history. Nice floors, I said, noting the fresh hardwood. Those run expensive. Wade paying for renovations these days? That's none of your business. Pauline's face flushed. It becomes my business when my mother-in-law suddenly has upgrades she couldn't afford on Social Security. I sat in the armchair across from her. Let me guess, Wade's been very generous since I left. Wade has helped this family while you were off doing God knows what. I was off recovering from the beating Wade and his friends gave me, the one your daughter watched happen and did nothing to stop. Pauline's hands trembled slightly. That's not how Sloan tells it. Sloan lies. She's my daughter, and she's been lying to both of us for years. I leaned forward. How many men were there before Wade, Pauline? How many times did my wife cheat on me while you said nothing? The color drained from her face. Silence stretched between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I found out about the first one 8 years ago. Some man called the house looking for her, said things that made it obvious they'd been involved. Pauline stared at her hands. When I confronted Sloan, she begged me not to tell you, said it was over, said it meant nothing. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. You two seemed happy. The children were happy. Her eyes glistened. I told myself it was a mistake, that she'd learned. But she hadn't. Pauline shook her head slowly. There was another one 5 years ago, someone from her yoga studio, and then Wade started coming around more often, and I knew it was happening again. I felt sick. 8 years. She'd known 8 years and never said a word. What about Nora? I asked quietly. Is she mine? Pauline met my eyes. Fear lived there. The kind of fear that comes from holding secrets too long. Sloan won't let me be alone with her. Says Nora needs stability, but I think she's afraid I'll tell you the truth. Pauline's voice cracked. The timing, Cole. Sloan was with Wade around the time Nora would have been conceived. I tried to ask her about it once, and she nearly threw me out of her own house. I stood up. My legs felt hollow. I'm getting that DNA test, Pauline, whatever it takes. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. For what it's worth, Nash, I'm sorry. I should have told you years ago. I was just so afraid. Afraid of what? Of Sloan, of what she'd become. Pauline looked at me with exhausted eyes. My daughter isn't who I thought she was. I don't know if she ever was. She chose her daughter over the truth. Would you have done the same? I walked out without answering, my mind racing with everything I'd learned. Sloan hadn't just betrayed me with Wade. She'd been betraying me for nearly a decade, and her own mother had watched it happen, said nothing, and let me build a life on quicksand. Now I needed proof, documentation, something that would hold up in court, and I needed that DNA test. Getting a DNA test without Sloan's cooperation wasn't simple, but it wasn't impossible either. My lawyer, Victor Hale, laid out the options in his office on Commerce Street. 61 years old, silver beard, and a reputation for dismantling liars in family court. You can petition for a court-ordered paternity test, Victor said, sliding documents across his desk. Given that you're listed on Nora's birth certificate and you've been paying child support, you have standing. I froze. What child support? I haven't paid anything. I've been gone 18 months. Victor's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. He turned his computer monitor toward me. There it was, a checking account at Cedar Valley Credit Union, my name, my social security number, opened 2 months after I left town. Monthly deposits followed by automatic withdrawals to Sloan Brennan, labeled as child support. "That's fraud," I said, my voice tight. "I never opened that account. I never signed anything." "Then someone opened it using your identity." Victor tapped the screen. "The deposits are coming from Garrett Mechanical Services, Wade Garrett's company." Wade's company, the one built on my stolen equipment and my stolen clients. "He's been funneling money to Sloan through an account in my name," I said slowly, understanding dawning, "making it look like I've been meeting my obligations, while also creating a paper trail showing you have hidden income. If Sloan ever took you to court for more support, there's documentation suggesting you have money you're concealing." Victor leaned back. "It's clever, sociopathic, but clever." "Can we use this against him?" "Absolutely. Identity theft, bank fraud, potentially more depending on where those deposits really originate." He pulled out another folder. "But there's more. I had my investigator pull the business records." He spread papers across the desk. Loan applications, equipment purchases, a lease agreement for commercial property. Every single one bore my signature. Signatures I had never made. 6 loans, Victor said, all taken out in your name over the past 18 months. The money went into accounts controlled by Wade Garrett. Your credit is destroyed. There are collection agencies looking for you. And if you hadn't come back, you'd eventually face arrest for fraud you never committed." I stared at the forged signatures. They were good, close enough to fool a bank officer who wasn't paying attention. But the loops were wrong, the pressure points different. Wade had practiced my handwriting, probably traced it from old documents he'd seen at my house over the years of friendship. Friendship. The word tasted like ash. "File for the paternity test," I said quietly, "and start building the fraud case. I want everything documented." "You're going to fight against the DNA test. Her attorney will claim I abandoned my family and have no right to disrupt Nora's life." "Let her fight. I need to know the truth." Victor nodded, making notes. "I'll have the petition filed by end of day tomorrow. Expect a hearing within 2 weeks." He was right about Sloan fighting. 3 days later, I got the call. Her attorney had filed a motion to block the test. The argument was exactly what Victor predicted. I abandoned my family and now harassing them. The judge scheduled a hearing for the following week. Meanwhile, I threw myself into work at Boyd's maintenance garage. Word spread fast in a small town. Cole Brennan was back and doing quality work at fair prices. My schedule filled up within days. On Thursday afternoon, I was deep inside a commercial heating unit when I heard footsteps approaching. I pulled myself out of the access panel and found myself face to face with my daughter. Iris stood there, 15 years old, looking so much like her mother that it hurt. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was uncertain. I set down my tools slowly. "Iris, does your mother know you're here?" "No. I told her I had debate practice." She bit her lip. "We need to talk." I led her into the small office at the back of the garage. We sat across from each other, and I waited. Iris stared at her hands for a long moment. "Mom's been lying about everything," she said quietly, "and I think you deserve to know the truth." Iris sat across from me, her hands trembling as she pulled out her phone. "I should have told you 18 months ago," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But Mom said if I told anyone, you'd never come back. She said you left because you didn't love us anymore." "That's not true, sweetheart. I left because Wade and his friends put me in the hospital." "I know that now." She unlocked her phone and pulled up a video. "Wade doesn't know I recorded this. It was the night you left." My hand shook as I took the phone. The video was dark, grainy, shot from her bedroom window overlooking the driveway, but the audio was clear enough.
He's not coming back. Nobody recovers from a beating like that and shows his face again. Wade's voice, slurred with alcohol and arrogance. And then Sloane's voice, cold, calculated, nothing like the woman I thought I'd married. Good. Now we can finally be together without him getting in the way. I felt like I'd been stabbed. Hearing it, seeing the proof that Sloane had wanted me gone, it was somehow worse than the beating itself. There's more, Iris said. She swiped to another video, this one recorded inside the house, maybe 6 months after I'd left. Sloane and Wade in the kitchen. Watch. Sloane was crying in the video. He wants a DNA test on Nora. What am I supposed to do? Wade's response was ice cold. You tell your lawyer he abandoned the family, make him look unstable, and if he pushes, we'll make sure he never sees any of the kids again. I looked up at my daughter, this brave, terrified girl who'd been carrying these secrets for 18 months. Why are you showing me this now? Because I'm tired of the lies, her voice cracked. Because Wade's been different lately, meaner. He yells at Mom when he thinks we can't hear. And last week I heard him on the phone saying that Nora better be worth all this trouble. My blood went cold. What does that mean? I think it means he's not even sure she's his either. And if she's not, then he's been playing Mom this whole time for nothing. Sometimes the people who save you are the ones you thought you were supposed to protect. If you're still here, still subscribed, you understand. Some truths need witnesses. I pulled Iris into a hug, feeling her shake against my chest. You did the right thing telling me. I promise I'm going to fix this. What about Nora? She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Dad, what if she's not yours? I thought about my youngest daughter. Her blonde curls, her yellow rain boots, the way she used to wrap herself around my leg and call me daddy with complete trust in her voice. Then she's still the little girl who needs protecting. Biology doesn't change that. Iris nodded slowly, some of the fear leaving her face. Mom's been different too. She got sick about 9 months ago. She won't tell us what it is, but I've seen the medicine bottles. I looked them up online. They're for cancer treatment. Cancer. Sloane was sick. How bad? I don't know. She hides it, but Wade uses it against her. I've heard him say things like, "Who else is going to take care of you?" and "You need me." Iris's voice hardened. He's not helping her because he cares about her. He's keeping her trapped. Rage built in my chest, the kind that makes men do stupid things, but I forced it down. Iris needed me to be smart, not violent. I need you to send me those videos, everything you have. Already done. I emailed them before I came here. She stood up. I have to go. If Mom finds out I was here, she'll lose it. Iris, wait. I caught her hand. I know I left. I know that hurt you, but I need you to understand I left to protect myself so I could come back and protect all of you. I never stopped being your father. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I missed you, Dad, every single day. I missed you too, baby girl, and I'm not leaving again. Not ever. After she left, I sat in that office watching the videos over and over. Sloane and Wade had conspired to destroy me, to take everything I'd built, to poison my children against me. But Iris had given me a weapon, undeniable proof. The question now was how to use it without destroying my daughter in the process.
Declan came home on a Wednesday. I was replacing a condenser unit at Boyd's warehouse when my phone buzzed. A text from Iris. Declan's flight lands at 4. He wants to see you, says it's important. My son, 22 years old, Army sergeant, deployed overseas for the past 14 months. The last time we'd spoken, he'd called me a coward and hung up. I left work early and drove to the address Iris sent me, a coffee shop on the north side of town, away from the places Sloane might frequent. Declan was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, wearing civilian clothes, his left arm in a sling. He looked older than 22, harder. The military had carved away whatever softness remained from his teenage years. He looked up when I approached. Those eyes, my father's eyes, everyone always said, were guarded, measuring. "Dad?" No emotion, just acknowledgement. "Son," I slid into the booth across from him. "Iris said you got hurt." An IED clipped our convoy, shrapnel in the shoulder, nothing that won't heal. He rotated the arm slightly. "They're sending me stateside for medical evaluation, probably 6 months of desk duty before I'm cleared again. I'm glad you're okay." "Am I?" He leaned forward, "because right now I don't know what's true anymore." "What did Iris tell you?" "Everything. The videos, the DNA test, the forged loans." His jaw tightened. "I spent 18 months defending Mom to anyone who'd listen, got in fights over it, told people my father was a deadbeat who abandoned his family." "You believed what she told you?" "I believed my mother." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old phone, cracked screen, outdated model. "I found this right before I deployed, 14 months ago. It was hidden in Mom's closet behind a box of old tax returns." He unlocked it and slid it across the table. I picked it up, started scrolling. Text messages, hundreds of them, between Sloan and Wade, dating back over 4 years. Explicit messages, plans to meet, discussions about money, about the business, about me, how to isolate me from friends, how to make me doubt myself, how to engineer situations that would make me look paranoid or unstable if I ever accused them. I kept scrolling, my stomach churning with every message. One thread from 3 years ago, Sloan asking Wade if he thought the HVAC business was worth enough to make this all worth it. Wade responding that once I was out of the picture, they could sell the client list and equipment easily. Another from 18 months ago, right after I'd left, Wade telling Sloan to stay the course and that I'd never have the guts to come back. "Where did you get this?" I finally asked. "I took it before I deployed, told myself I was being paranoid, that Mom couldn't really be this person." He paused, but I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong, so I held on to it, read through it when I couldn't sleep at night overseas. "Why didn't you reach out sooner?" "Because I needed to see for myself, needed to hear your side." He met my eyes. "I spent 18 months hating you, Dad, thinking you were weak, thinking you ran, and the whole time, Mom was lying about everything." "She's still your mother." Declan laughed bitterly. "Is she? Because right now I don't know who she is." He leaned back. "But I know who you are. You're the guy who taught me to throw a football, who stayed up all night helping me with college applications, who came to every single one of my games, even when you were exhausted from work." Something loosened in my chest, something I hadn't realized was wound so tight. "That guy wouldn't abandon his family without a damn good reason," Declan continued. "I should have trusted that. You were working with the information you had. I was believing lies." He nodded towards the phone. "Take it, give it to your lawyer, burn them both to the ground." I looked at my son, this man who'd gone halfway around the world carrying the weight of a broken family, only to come home and discover the break had been engineered from the start. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Be there for your sisters. Iris is caught in the middle. Nora doesn't understand what's happening. They need someone stable. And Mom? What happens to her when all this comes out?" "That's up to the courts." I hesitated. "But Declan, there's something else. Your grandmother mentioned Sloane's sick. Cancer, apparently. She's been getting treatment." His face went pale. "How bad?" "I don't know, but Wade's been using it to control her, making her dependent on him." Declan's hands clenched into fists on the table. "How does someone do that, manipulate a sick woman?" "The same way he manipulated all of us, by lying, by finding weaknesses, by being exactly what people need until he's got them trapped." Declan was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Respect. "You came back to face this. That took guts. I came back for you kids. Everything else is just settling accounts." "Then let's settle them," Declan said. "Tell me what needs to be done."
I waited until Friday night when I knew Wade would be holding court at the Wheelhouse Bar and Grill. Every Friday, for as long as I could remember, Wade gathered his crew at the same corner booth, drinks flowing, stories getting louder. The whole town knew it was his territory. Tonight, I was going to take it from him. Boyd had set things up earlier that day. He knew the owner, helped me get access to the bar's sound system. All I had to do was connect my phone and press play. I pushed through the door at 8:30. The place was packed, locals unwinding after the work week, families finishing dinner, and in the back corner, Wade Garrett surrounded by 3 of his buddies. He spotted me immediately. The color drained from his face for just a second before he recovered, forced a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, well," he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look who finally crawled back to town. Cole Brennan, everybody, the man who abandoned his wife and kids." Conversations died. Heads turned. I felt the weight of every stare. I walked straight toward his table, stopped about 10 feet away. "We need to talk, Wade." "Nothing to talk about." He spread his hands, playing to the crowd. "You ran away, left your sick wife to fend for herself, left your kids without a father, and now what? You want sympathy?" "I want the truth." "The truth?" Wade laughed. "The truth is you had a breakdown, got paranoid, got violent. I had to defend myself when you came at me. Ask anyone." I pulled out my phone. "Let's ask them." His smile faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" I connected to the Bluetooth speaker behind the bar, the one Boyd had made sure was paired and ready. Then I pressed play. "He's not coming back. Nobody recovers from a beating like that and shows his face again." Wade's voice filled the room, loud and clear, and then Sloan. "Good. Now we can finally be together without him getting in the way." The bar went silent. I watched Wade's face transform. Shock, fear, rage, all cycling through in seconds. "That's fake," he said, standing up. "He doctored that audio." "Did I?" I kept my voice calm. "Did I also doctor the bank records showing you opened accounts in my name? The forged loan documents with my signature? The text messages from Sloan's burner phone planning how to steal my business?" Phones were coming out everywhere, people recording. This would be all over social media within the hour. "You don't know what you're talking about," Wade snarled. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." I took a step closer. "You stole my wife, stole my company, stole 18 months of my life, and you've been walking around this town like some kind of hero while I was painted as the villain." Wade lunged at me. I was ready. 18 months of rage, 18 months of training. I sidestepped his wild swing and drove my fist into his gut. He doubled over, gasping. His buddies jumped up, but they weren't alone anymore. Boyd had sent 3 of his guys, big men who worked construction. They positioned themselves between me and Wade's crew. "This is between me and Wade," I said clearly. "Anyone else wants to get involved, they go through them first." Wade straightened up, wheezing. "You think you've won? You think some recording changes anything?" "I think everyone in this bar just heard the truth. I think that recording is already with my lawyer, the police, and about 100 people online." I leaned in close. "You're done, Wade. Your reputation, your business, your little arrangement with my wife, all of it, done." I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard the whispers starting, the judgments forming, Wade trying to explain, to spin, to lie his way out. But there was no lying his way out of this. I pushed through the door into the cool night air. It wasn't the ending I imagined, no dramatic brawl, no movie moment of perfect justice. Just a man exposed for what he really was, in front of everyone who'd believed his lies. Sometimes the best revenge is simply the truth.
The DNA results came back on a Tuesday. I was underneath a rooftop unit at one of Boyd's properties when Victor called. I scrambled down the ladder so fast I nearly fell. "She's yours," Victor said without preamble. "Nora is biologically your daughter, 99.9% certainty." I sat down right there on the rooftop, legs suddenly unable to hold me. Relief flooded through my chest, joy, and underneath it all, a burning fury that Sloan had ever let me doubt. "Cole, you still there?" "Yeah," my voice came out rough. "I'm here. There's more. The court accepted the fraud evidence. Wade Garrett is facing criminal charges for identity theft, forgery, and bank fraud. His assets have been frozen pending investigation." "What about Sloan?" "That's more complicated. She claims she didn't know about the forged documents, says Wade handled all the finances. But given the evidence from the burner phone, the prosecutor is considering charges against her as well." I closed my eyes, processing. Wade facing criminal charges, Sloan potentially following, my daughter confirmed as mine. Everything I'd come for was falling into place. What's next? Custody hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Given the fraud, the recordings, and Sloan's documented pattern of deception, you have a strong case for primary custody of Nora. Iris is old enough to choose where she wants to live. After we hung up, I sat on that rooftop for a long time, watching the sun set over Cedar Falls, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. I was still there when my phone buzzed again. A text from Sloan. "We need to talk. Please, just the two of us." Against every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, I agreed to meet her. Not at the house, not anywhere private, a coffee shop on Main Street where there would be witnesses. She was already there when I arrived, looking worse than the last time I'd seen her. Thinner, paler. The cancer treatment was eating her alive. For a moment I felt something like pity. Then I remembered the recordings, her voice saying she was glad I was gone. I sat across from her, waited. "The DNA test came back," she said quietly. "I know, Nora's mine." Sloan nodded slowly. "I always knew she was. I let Wade convince me there was doubt, let him use it to keep you away." "Why?" "Because I was scared," her eyes glistened, "of being alone, of being sick and having no one. Wade made himself indispensable, and by the time I realized what he really was, I was already trapped." "You weren't trapped, Sloan. You made choices. Every single day, you made choices." She flinched. I know I did." She took a shaky breath. "That's why I want to make you an offer." "I'm listening." "We stay married, on paper only. You move back into the house, take over everything, the kids, the decisions, all of it. I won't fight you on custody. I won't fight you on anything." She leaned forward, desperation in her eyes. "We just present a united front for Nora, for Iris. No ugly court battle, no public humiliation. And what do you get out of this?" "Stability, while I'm going through treatment, someone to help with the kids, and maybe," she hesitated, "maybe a chance to make things right eventually." I studied her face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. "You want me to pretend the last 19 years didn't happen, pretend you cheated on me with at least 3 different men, pretend you watched Wade beat me unconscious and do nothing? I want peace, Cole. I'm tired. I'm sick. I'm scared." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "And I don't want to die alone." I stood up. "No." "Cole, please." "No." I leaned down, my voice low but firm. "I'm not going to live a lie for the rest of my life. I'm not going to pretend we're something we're not, just to make you comfortable. You made your choices. Now you live with them." I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Would you accept a hollow peace to avoid a war, or burn it all down for your integrity?
3 days after I rejected Sloan's offer, her lawyer filed an emergency motion. Victor called me into his office, his face grim. "She's claiming you're an unfit parent due to emotional instability and violent tendencies." He slid the document across the desk. She's also claiming that your disappearance for 18 months constitutes abandonment and that removing Nora from her primary caregiver during a medical crisis would cause irreparable psychological harm. I read through the motion, every word calculated to paint me as the villain. She's using her cancer as a weapon. Essentially, yes. She's arguing that taking Nora away from a dying mother would traumatize the child. The judge will have to consider that. She's not dying, she's receiving treatment. We'll need medical records to establish that, which means subpoenaing her doctors. Victor paused. Cole, I have to ask, are you prepared for what this is going to look like? A man fighting a cancer patient for custody of a 4-year-old? I'm prepared to fight for my daughter, whatever it takes. Then we need to be strategic. The recordings help. The fraud evidence helps. Declan and Iris willing to testify helps enormously. He made notes. But Sloane's lawyer is going to put her on the stand and let her cry about being sick and scared and abandoned. Juries and judges respond to that. What do you recommend? We focus on the pattern of deception, the multiple affairs, the conspiracy with Wade, the forged documents. We establish that Sloane has consistently prioritized her own interests over the welfare of her children. Victor looked up. And we get Iris on record about the hostile environment in that house, the yelling, Wade's presence, the instability. I hated the idea of putting my daughter on a witness stand, having her testify against her own mother. But Iris had already made her choice. She'd brought me those recordings knowing exactly what it would mean. There's something else, Victor said. Wade Garrett left town, skipped bail. There's a warrant out for him for his arrest, but so far, nothing. He ran? The night after your confrontation at the bar, cleaned out what was left of his accounts and disappeared. Victor's expression was unreadable. Some people are saying you scared him off. Others are saying he'll be back. I didn't care about Wade anymore. He was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was the life I'd built on a foundation of lies. The disease was trusting someone who'd never deserved it. Focus on the custody case, I said. Wade's someone else's problem now. The next 2 weeks were a blur of depositions and document reviews and strategy sessions. Declan stood by my side through all of it. Iris provided detailed statements about life in the house after I left. Even Pauline Vance agreed to testify about what she'd known and when. Sloane's lawyer tried every trick in the book. Delays, objections, character witnesses who painted me as distant and workaholic. They brought in a psychologist who'd never met me to opine about the effects of parental abandonment. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the burner phone messages, the forged documents, the testimony of my own children. By the time we walked into that courtroom for the final hearing, I knew we had everything we needed. But knowing and believing are different things. And part of me, the part that had spent 20 years loving Sloane despite everything, still couldn't believe it had come to this. 2 people who'd promised to love each other forever, now sitting on opposite sides of a courtroom fighting over the children we made together. I looked across the aisle at Sloane, thin and pale in a conservative dress, tissue clutched in her hand. She looked back at me with something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Regret? Fear? Hatred? Maybe all 3. The judge entered. Everyone rose, and the final battle began.
The judge took her time. 4 hours of testimony, recordings played for the court, documents entered into evidence. Iris, brave and steady, explaining what life had been like after I left. Declan corroborating everything with military precision. Even Pauline, tears streaming down her face, admitting she'd known about Sloane's affairs for years and said nothing. When Judge Patricia Holloway finally spoke, the courtroom held its breath. Based on the evidence presented, she began, including documented financial fraud, a pattern of infidelity and deception, and testimony from both minor and adult children regarding the home environment, I am awarding primary physical custody of Nora Rose Brennan to her father, Cole Brennan. I heard Sloane's sharp intake of breath across the aisle. Mrs. Brennan will have supervised visitation every other weekend, pending successful completion of court-mandated counseling. The judge paused, looking directly at Sloane. Furthermore, I am ordering restitution for the fraudulent loans and stolen business assets. A payment plan will be established by this court. It was over. 19 years of marriage, 18 months of exile, weeks of legal warfare. Done. Outside the courthouse, Iris was waiting with Nora. My youngest daughter ran to me, wrapping her arms around my legs. "Are we going home now, Daddy?" I picked her up, holding her tight. "Yeah, sweetheart, we're going home." Iris smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen from her in months. "Declan's making dinner. He promised not to burn it this time." We all laughed. The sound felt foreign after so much darkness, but good, healing. The house, my house now, legally, felt different when we walked in. Declan had been cleaning for days, getting rid of the clutter, the lies, the weight of everything Sloane had accumulated. It felt lighter, full of possibility instead of resentment. That evening, after Nora was asleep and Iris was doing homework, Declan and I sat on the back porch, the same porch where I'd spent countless nights worrying about money, about Sloane's distance, about whether I was enough. "Boyd offered me the maintenance garage," I said. "Full ownership. Says he's retiring to Florida. Can you afford it?" "With what the judge awarded, yeah. It'll be tight, but it's mine." I took a breath. No partners, no one to betray me. Declan nodded slowly. Then he cleared his throat. "There's someone I want you to meet, a physical therapist at the VA where I've been doing rehab for my shoulder. Her name's Tessa. She has a friend who just moved to town, needs some HVAC work done." I looked at my son, saw the hint of a smile he was trying to hide. Subtle. "I learned from the best," he shrugged. "She's good people, Dad. Honest. No games." I thought about it. The idea of trusting someone again, opening up after everything. "Maybe," I said finally, "when things settle down." "Things are settled." Declan met my eyes. "You came back. You fought. You won. Now it's time to actually live again." I looked out at the driveway, the same driveway where Wade had beaten me 18 months ago, the same driveway where my life had shattered. But I wasn't that man anymore. I'd rebuilt myself, reclaimed my children, found the truth, and maybe, just maybe, I was ready for whatever came next. Have you ever had to lose everything just to finally see who was worth keeping?